footballer.
It's that story that you mentioned there from Matt Lawton that we want to pick up on, and it's covered by a lot of journalists over the past couple of days. It is this Richard McLaren report into boxing and corruption in boxing at Rio 2016. Obviously, it's something that we're pretty familiar with. I don't think anybody in Ireland was too shocked to hear the words corruption and I guess underhanded tactics being used in connection with the boxing events at Rio. So McLaren has found that there was a culture of favours, particularly amongst the post-Soviet countries. So there are two in particular, Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan, that are coming under the microscope here. Azerbaijan gave AIBA an investment loan of $10 million that bouts would be manipulated in their favour for medals at London 2012. So this is not just a report that has shown up how Rio was this singular, disgraceful event in amateur boxing. London 2012 was essentially the groundwork for a lot of these organisations and these national governing bodies to try and get medals at Rio 2016. London has, with every passing month, it seems, lost every shred of integrity that it had as this great Olympic Games, this homecoming of British sport, this, I guess, bastion of hope for clean sport and for legitimate sport. Everything you read about those games now seems to cast a new shadow on it, and boxing is no different. So 2012 is when that $10 million investment loan from Azerbaijan goes in. I think the judges get a little bit spooked by this loan coming in, and they're like, it'll be a little bit too obvious if we give Azerbaijan all the decisions here. And I don't think Azerbaijan actually got as many medals as they wanted, and as a result they got screwed over a little bit. So poor Azerbaijan here tried to bribe and bribed badly. 4 years later, a $250,000 bribe was also offered by Mongolian officials in an attempt to fix an Olympic semi-final. Now, we've also got from Professor McLaren here details on how these things happened, how the judges managed to communicate with each other, and how these fights were actually effectively fixed. He said the signalling process started off as something basic, using either agreed upon hand or eye signals between them, or leaning back or forward with their bodies to inform others of the way they should judge a bout. So, like, I'm not sure if they're like, lean back extremely far there in your seat if you think Michael Conlon is in trouble here, and we should definitely award this fight to Nikitin. He said that the corruption went right to the top. Shock horror. Who would have thought it? AIBA, a poisonous, corrupt organisation back in the day. Wu Qingqiu and Karim Bouzidi are two of the officials named. Bouzidi, the then AIBA executive director, Wu Qingqiu, the then AIBA president, respectively being key actors in allowing the manipulation to flourish. Now, Bouzidi, according to Engel here, was the chief architect of a scheme, with McLaren saying he seized powers to oversee the appointment of referees and judges that knew what was going on but would comply with the manipulation, or who were incompetent. So basically they're looking around saying, can we find somebody who's weak, or can we find somebody who is open to being bent with regards to the corruption that we want to see unfold here. And there's one really interesting anecdote here. He says in one case, McLaren says a senior judge entered the room of an honest official late at night using a set of room keys obtained from the front desk. That official was then warned that as a result of the way the bouts were being scored, it wouldn't bode well for the witness's future. The witness recalled, "I was scared shitless because I've got people coming into my room, like bursting into my room and telling me what I'm doing wrong." This is a pretty terrifying prospect if you are an innocent bystander in all of this, and you want to referee or judge a boxing bout honestly at Rio 2016. It turns out if you wanted to do that, that was not the activity for you. Honesty was not the MO of people involved in Rio 2016 boxing, but it goes beyond that. It goes back to London 2012 as well, and obviously Michael Conlon was on the record yesterday saying, no surprise whatsoever, I said it at the time, and a huge day for amateur boxing, he says.
You wonder how, when a boxer stands in the ring, outside the ring after a fight that clearly the result was not the actual outcome of, and says these guys are corrupt, it takes 5 years, is it? Am I calculating that correctly? 5 years to come to this conclusion. That, to me, I know you got to do due diligence, you got to look at it, you got to flip it this way and that, you know, and somebody's made a fair whack of cash also, by the way, let's not forget that, with like investigating this thing and getting to, I mean, the bottom of it, I don't know, maybe the middle of it somewhere, but I just can't really, the investigation begins straight away. it's so bloody obvious. You find out this stuff 4 years ago. It feels like a bit the horse is bolting. I know that like boxing's under threat as well. It's been reported in some of the papers over the last little while that if AIBA don't get their act together, I don't know what the hell that looks like, that they're going to just be, I was going to use a word there, they're just going to be thrown out of the Olympics altogether. Now that would be desperate, obviously for us particularly, and for the boxers that we have, but maybe that's what boxing needs.
Do you ever wake up in a cold sweat in the middle of the night and think to yourself, God, why couldn't Ireland just be good at something that was a little more honest? Why couldn't we just have a nation of brilliant kayakers where it's up to you, where if you screw up, it's on you. There's no dodgy judging or anything like that. Why do we need to be good at amateur boxing?
What we need to do, Eoin, is to build. That's a really good idea. If we built like a whitewater centre in the middle of Dublin City,
maybe that was
excellent idea.
That's that was all above board. That's and something that people wanted. Like if we could just shoehorn off our amateur boxers into something that would actually give them a fair crack at a whip, then coming up to the Grand Canal.
Is this the end of it? Is that, have they put a full stop on it? Is a little ribbon on it now and it's been presented and there is no more to come? I
presume there will be implications for the report by Professor Richard McLaren, who's done brilliant work, obviously. He exposed essentially the state-sponsored doping program.
Look, I don't want to be overly critical. The outcome is sort of what you want. You just would like it. It's kind of an irrelevance now in that, like, all the protagonists have moved on. They've gone on to become professionals. They've retired, whatever. It's rear view mirror stuff. Would have been good to have seen it 3 or 6 months afterwards.